One of the things I'm seeing more and more of as an online coach and mentor to really busy professional women who are over 50 is something I'm going to talk to you about today. So, I work with women who are struggling with perimenopause and menopause. They're struggling with the added weight that brings on and the metabolic change that's happening and is resulting in some physical struggles. They're also dealing with, this transitional period of life where their kids are growing up, and so their role is changing. They're facing retirement. There are all kinds of struggles that go with this, what can be an amazing an amazing period of life. But in addition to that, many of the women who I am coaching, and I would say I've seen an uptick in this in the last year and a half, especially, there's like this added complexity, and that is the additional responsibility of caring for elderly parents. And sometimes, and oftentimes, I will say, elderly parents who are not in the best health. And having this added challenge can really significantly impact your mental health and your physical health and your weight loss journey too. So I want to talk with you a little bit about what I am seeing around this phenomenon. And I hear this so much in with not only my clients, but the women that I'm talking to who are interested in my coaching, that I think this will be really relatable. And I hope to help you to feel like you're not alone, but also kind of break down some of the dynamics around this, which can be really uncomfortable and create some internal conflict for you, in addition to the physical and mental and emotional struggles that it creates. And I want to give you some tips and ways that perhaps will help you to navigate this journey if you are in the situation where you're having to care for elderly parents. So one of the big struggles that women in my coaching program deal with is all of the emotions around this situation. So many of the women who I coach feel really guilty. They feel guilty about all kinds of things from their past. They may feel guilt around the relationship with their parent, whether that's a mom or a dad. They may feel guilty around not having spent enough time with their parents, as their kids were young, and over the last 10, 15, 20 years, as they were raising their own families and building their careers, they may feel this sort of guilt and loss around not having spent enough quality time with their parents. They also can feel guilty that they are now focused on their own health. And because of that guilt, they sort of slide back into this, well, I have to do this for my family. I shouldn't spend time on my own health. I can't prioritize myself over my parents. And that can really lead to neglect of their own self-care and routines. Okay. They also, oftentimes I see this increase in anxiety and worry, if as if in our 50s we don't have enough anxiety and worry already. I see an increase in this constant concern for their parents' health and well-being. And it can create this chronic anxiety and really burdensome kind of worry, where this emotional strain can cause you to have even more sleep disruption, appetite struggles, overall mental health struggles, that in turn can definitely impact your physical health and your weight loss efforts, in addition to your mental health, right? Frustration and anger is another very common, and would say normal kinds of emotion that comes up when you're dealing with the demands of caregiving. You can get frustrated. I see women get angry if they feel that, their siblings, for example, are not supporting them or doing their fair share, right? So they start to feel overwhelmed, and then they get angry at family members. They also can feel frustrated and sometimes angry with the parent who they're giving the care to. And these emotions can be really complicated because women will say things like, you know, I just needed her to get in the bed, get ready for bed, get in the bed, and try to go to sleep. And it was like dealing with a toddler again. She wanted to get a drink. She needed to go to the restroom, and I have to get up and go to work in the morning. And then it's like this vicious cycle because they get angry and frustrated with the elderly parent, but then they feel guilt for being frustrated, right? And so all of those things can lead to things like stress eating. It can lead to, skipping your own self-care, not making sure you have enough nutrition. Sometimes my clients will say, well, I didn't have time to do, any kind of exercise for myself, those kinds of things. Ultimately, I also see a lot of sadness and grief manifest in our clients who are dealing with this kind of caregiving, new situation of caregiving. They're watching a parent, someone they love dearly, or even if they didn't have a great relationship, they're watching the decline of this parent. And that becomes a deep source of sadness and even grief in advance of losing their parent. There's this grief over the loss of their parent's vitality and this recognition that their parents are going to pass at some point. And so this sort of anticipation of grief sets in and is its own type of grief in itself, right? And those kinds of feelings can lead to depression. It can, parlay into decreased motivation for maintaining their own healthy habits. And so it becomes extremely emotionally complicated. And there's no wrong way to feel. There's no necessarily right way to feel. It's very individual and it has to be navigated in that individual way. But I don't think it's something that should be navigated in isolation. You shouldn't try to do this on your own, right? Because remember, at this stage in life, my clients are all over 40 and a majority of them are in their 50s. And at this stage in life, we have our own struggles with our changing metabolism and our crazy imbalanced hormones and the shifting of the role that we play in our own life, right? We're looking at retirement. Our kids are getting older. Like how, what is my role now? What is my life what's the new normal for my life? And then you throw in oftentimes this an unexpected situation where our parents are struggling. And so it is very it is very individual and it's not something that you should try to navigate on your own. I think one of the things that I'm really good at helping our clients do is to acknowledge the feelings that they're having because it's something I think sometimes we want to stuff down. If you get frustrated with a parent who, for example, a lot of the women in our program are dealing with moms who have the beginnings of or even advanced levels of dementia and Alzheimer's. And that can be very frustrating to deal with a parent who is forgetting things, who sometimes doesn't remember who you are, or who can lash out at you as her daughter who's trying to help her, right? And so it's really complicated. And I think we oftentimes want to stuff those emotions down. And so I encourage clients and show them strategies for acknowledging those emotions without judgment of themselves, right? Understanding that it's normal to feel a range of emotions in caregiving situations like this. And the trick is, or the key to that, I will say, is getting help with processing those feelings in a much more effective way than just stuffing them down, right? And part of that comes in expressing your feelings, right? Like finding healthy outlets for expressing these emotions. And there are a number of different strategies that we use to help clients do that. And oftentimes they're the kinds of strategies that you get in therapy sessions. A lot of times clients will say, being in this coaching program is a lot like, being in therapy or what I would imagine being in therapy feels like. But it needs to feel that way. Finding creative kinds of activities or reading and writing and it takes a number of different kinds of strategies and again on an individual basis for expressing relief in a way are expressing emotion in a way that can provide relief and clarity and acceptance so that you can navigate through those very overwhelming kinds of feelings in a way that provides valuable tools for you, that gives you support for managing complex emotions, and helps you to maintain your own mental and physical health. One of the struggles that I see, and maybe you've experienced this, is this heightened stress level, right? Caring for parents who are sick or just getting, elderly and can't do as much for themselves can be emotionally and physically demanding. And so that oftentimes leads to chronic stress that can land you in, with even more weight gain than you were struggling with before, particularly around that abdominal area because of, the increase in stress hormones and the unhealthy gut health that happens. And so you're already dealing with that in itself, and then you start dealing with this added responsibility of dealing with caretaking for parents. And so stress levels go up, right? Time, balancing work, balancing your personal life, and those caregiving duties can really leave a little bit of time where you had little time in the to begin with. Now it's even less time for things like exercising, planning what you're going to eat in a healthy way, getting enough sleep, and all of that can hinder your progress in working toward health goals and weight loss goals too. Emotional eating, I mentioned that before, is often one of the ways that people, in an unhealthy way, that people deal with these kinds of emotions and the stress of taking care of parents. And certainly it lands a lot of women in the situation where they're neglecting their own self-care. And so all of that, when you consider all of that, it's just, a perfect storm for you being even more unhealthy, more emotionally unhealthy, physically unhealthy, mentally unhealthy. And so what do we do? I've mentioned some of the things that I help clients do, but I want to give you some tips that can be actual practical takeaways from this episode. And more than anything, I want you to know that it's normal if you're feeling these things. It's normal if these things are happening to you. No one really prepares us for this stage of life. Many of the things that happen in this stage of life. And I think caring for elderly parents is something that we don't really talk enough about, and we don't anticipate and strategize for in advance. And there are ways that once you're kind of thrown into that situation, you can work to make sure that it doesn't have the negative impact that it has the potential for being in your life. One of those strategies I will tell you is absolutely you have to prioritize yourself. I mean, be kind to yourself. Remember that it's okay, for example, to take breaks, to care for yourself. It is not selfish to need caregiving break time so that you can reduce the feelings of guilt, build your emotional resilience, build energy and physical strength so that you are better able to take care of your parents. And so, schedule time away from caregiving kinds of activities, even if it's just 10 to 15 minutes a day. Take time. And if that means that you have to enlist the support of a family member or a really good friend, I mean, if you have siblings, you need to sit them down and talk to them about this shared responsibility. And again, even if you're the primary caregiver for your parents, you can enlist support to give yourself those breaks for caring for yourself. Setting realistic goals in your health and your weight loss journey during this time is something I think is absolutely vital. You have to, in any situation, have really achievable health and fitness goals, right? Considering your busy schedule, considering, what's going on metabolically with you. I deal with a lot of women who have a huge amount of metabolic adaptation. Your metabolism is compromised. You are experiencing a lot of weight loss resistance. Well, then you throw caregiving into this ball game and it becomes even more complicated. So it's, always a good idea to set realistic goals, but in a situation where you have this added responsibility for taking care of parents, you need to set even more realistic goals that are actionable, that are sustainable, that can lead to long-term success for you. For example, aiming for 15 to 20 minutes of exercise just a few times a week is a much more doable, realistic goal in this situation than saying I'm going to go to the gym for an hour a day. I would argue that, 20 minutes 3 times a week is all anyone needs to do, but especially in a situation where you have this added responsibility of caretaking. Planning and prepping meals. I am not a huge proponent of having to do a lot of food prep. Our clients are busy. It's one of the things that I tell women when I talk with them about our program in my coaching is that you don't have to spend, for example, all day prepping food. A little bit of planning, though, goes a long way. And I advise clients in that way all the time. Take a few minutes to plan in advance, and it can save you tons of frustration and really help facilitate your progress. Well, if you have the added responsibility of caretaking for parents, I think it goes without it just has to be a standard part of what you do. Doing a little bit of meal prepping, for example, on the weekends can ensure that you have some healthy, balanced meals and snacks ready for the week. It'll reduce the temptation for you to resort to those unhealthy kind of, emotional eating and eating, coping with frustration and emotions by eating comfort foods, those kinds of things. And especially if you are responsible for your parents' snacks and meals, you're just absolutely going to have to set aside a little bit of time. One of the strategies that I work with clients on, though, that I think can be super helpful in this situation too, is you don't have to spend all day Sunday prepping every meal and every snack. But if you just say, okay, what are 3 super quick, healthy dinners that we're going to have for the week? And then you can have leftovers for lunches, and eat out or grab something in the drive-through. There's a lot of healthy options that I teach clients how to make healthy options when they get takeout food. So, when you're doing that 3 days a week, you've got meals planned, dinners planned, you do takeout one night and you eat leftovers 2 nights. You can have a week worth of meals with only basically cooking 3 things, right? So it doesn't have to be an all day event to plan. The other thing is you need to seek out really good support for yourself. Women who are in my coaching program are getting lots and lots of support in this way. I mean, my coaching evolves as our clients evolve. And like I said, over the last year and a half, I've had more and more women come to us who absolutely have this added situation, this added complexity to their weight and their health journeys. And so I'm adding more support in for this exact kind of a situation and scenario. But if you're not in my coaching, you have got to seek support out from family, from friends, from other professionals, maybe professional caregivers. Maybe it is time for you to seek some counseling and therapy. There's no shame in that at all. And that way you're kind of sharing the responsibility, lightening the load of both the actual, physical demands of caretaking, but also you're lightening the emotional load on yourself. You're giving yourself a little bit of time. You're arming yourself with strategies and support so that you can really be emotionally supported. Also, a place that you can get some practical advice when your thinking may not be super clear about this situation. You can talk with someone about what's happening and get some practical advice about how to handle situations with your parents, right? And, ultimately what that allows you to do is develop really solid coping strategies that are healthy, not unhealthy coping strategies. I think that's one of the strengths of my coaching and in our MRS program is that there are strategies for managing stress and difficult emotions. There are unhealthy strategies and there are healthy strategies. And those coping strategies, when you focus them in a really healthy way, they can teach you to be mindful about what's happening with you physically and emotionally. I mean, there are a lot of different practices that you can use that are physical practices, that are guided kind of thinking practices, things that we teach clients, and I'm really big on are thought processes that allow you to stay focused, to continue on your healthy journey in a way that is calm, that de-stresses you, and doesn't create any more physical and emotional chaos than is already happening that you have to manage, right? And all of that really, in an overall kind of way, it improves your health, your mental health, your physical health, and your resilience too, right? And so make sure that you're practicing self-compassion. Make sure that you've got that supportive network around you. Make sure that you're doing things like scheduling breaks. If nothing else, in terms of self-care, schedule yourself regular breaks. And in all, know that this is totally normal. But if you address the physical and emotional challenges that are added to your life by caretaking for an elderly parent, you can absolutely better navigate the responsibilities while at the same time maintaining your own health and well-being. And so it's more of a, a holistic approach that you've got to take to really ensure that you're equipped to handle everything that comes with this stage of life and caretaking for older parents. And when you do, you can lead a more balanced life yourself, a healthy and fulfilling life through this challenging time. And you will look back at this time, which for many of our clients have been the last year or so of time with their parents, and you can look back on it with a lot of fond memories and love and happiness and feel very fulfilled about that responsibility that you took on in a loving way. And that's always a great thing, right? Thanks for being here with me this week. I always appreciate you guys spending time with me. And I hope this is a topic that I've thought a lot about for a while now. And I hope that I gave you some really practical tips for managing it. But I hope it also just kind of puts your mind at ease about what you're going through. If you're in the situation yourself, or if you know that it's coming. It's just part of life, right? And life is beautiful and wonderful, and life is hard in a lot of ways. And it's finding the ways to get through the hard with self-compassion and love and avoiding regret that makes the beautiful and amazing parts of life even more wonderful. So thanks for being here with me. I really appreciate your time and your attention. And yeah, I hope this one was helpful. Message me and let me know if any of this resonated with you.